One of the clearest ways to know whether a relationship is healthy or toxic is to pay attention to your own energy. Relationships are, at their core, exchanges of energy. Every conversation, every interaction, every moment of presence between two people involves a transfer. Sometimes it's uplifting. You walk away feeling lighter, more alive, more capable. Other times it's draining. You leave the interaction feeling small, confused, or somehow less than you were before. That difference in energy is not a coincidence. It's a reflection of the health of the relationship. When a relationship is healthy, it feels like it's giving you life. You feel supported, not just in the big dramatic moments, but in the small, ordinary ones too. A healthy partner, friend, or colleague doesn't necessarily solve your problems, but their presence strengthens you. You find yourself thinking more clearly, feeling more hopeful, and taking bolder steps in your life. Their energy adds to yours. By contrast, when a relationship is toxic, it feels like it's stealing from you, not in the literal sense of money or material things, but in the sense of emotional bandwidth, peace of mind, and self-worth. You may notice that after spending time with this person, you're more anxious than before, doubting yourself in ways you never used to, or carrying a heaviness that lingers long after the interaction is over. Toxic energy drains you, not because you are weak, but because the relationship dynamic is imbalanced. It takes more than it gives. Psychologically, this comes down to something simple but powerful: emotional safety. In healthy relationships, you feel safe to be yourself. That safety frees your mind and heart, giving you energy. In toxic ones, you are always on guard, wondering what mood the other person is in, anticipating criticism, or censoring yourself to avoid conflict. That constant vigilance drains enormous amounts of energy. It's like leaving a phone running on multiple apps all day. It might look fine on the outside, but the battery runs out fast. That's exactly what happens in toxic dynamics. Your emotional battery is constantly being depleted. Philosophically, you could think of it as the difference between nourishment and poison. Healthy relationships nourish your spirit the way good food nourishes your body. They give you strength, resilience, and vitality. Toxic relationships, on the other hand, may taste sweet in moments. They may even look attractive from the outside, but underneath, they erode your health. And just like poison doesn't always kill instantly, toxic energy doesn't always show itself right away. Sometimes it works slowly, day by day, until you realize you no longer recognize yourself. Now, it's important to note that no relationship is perfect. Even the healthiest ones will have arguments, disagreements, or moments of tension. But here's the difference: in a healthy relationship, the difficult moments are temporary dips in energy. You may feel hurt or upset, but eventually, the overall pattern is still nourishing. In toxic relationships, the energy drain is the pattern itself. The lows outweigh the highs. You find yourself rationalizing, making excuses, or holding on to occasional good moments to justify an overall experience that is harming you. That's the red flag. The real test is simple. Do you feel more alive or less alive when you are with this person consistently over time? The answer to that question will tell you more about the health of the relationship than any checklist ever could. Sometimes we ignore this because we're attached. We convince ourselves that feeling drained is normal, that love requires suffering, or that loyalty means tolerating anything. But love that destroys you is not love. Loyalty that erases you is not loyalty. A relationship should not cost you your peace of mind just to keep it alive. That is not strength. That is sacrifice without purpose. Healthy relationships are additive. They don't replace your energy, they amplify it. Toxic relationships are subtractive. They don't just take, they leave you with less than you started. And the danger is, if you stay in a toxic environment long enough, you start to normalize the drain. You think exhaustion is your fault, anxiety is just part of life, or confusion is love. It's not. It's simply the result of being in an unhealthy exchange of energy. And so the invitation is clear: start paying attention to how you feel after you interact with someone. If you feel seen, strengthened, and more yourself, that's a sign of health. If you feel smaller, weaker, or less sure of who you are, that's a sign of toxicity. Don't just measure the relationship by words or appearances. Measure it by the energy it leaves you with. Because your energy tells the truth even when your mind tries to deny it. And here's the closing truth I want you to carry with you. The right people will never drain you of your light. They will remind you of it. The wrong people will dim you, distract you, and deplete you. So if you want to know whether a relationship is healthy or toxic, don't ask your heart or your head, ask your energy. It never lies. If energy reveals the overall feel of a relationship, then communication reveals its structure. Communication is the bloodstream of human connection. It carries honesty, respect, and understanding from one heart to another. And the way communication flows tells you instantly whether a relationship is healthy or toxic. Because in the end, words are not just sounds. They are carriers of intention. They either build trust or break it. They either clarify or confuse. They either empower or manipulate. In a healthy relationship, communication is open and transparent. You feel like you can bring your whole self to the table, your joys, your fears, your mistakes, and you will be received with respect. That doesn't mean the other person will always agree with you, but it does mean they will listen, they will acknowledge, and they will respond with a level of honesty that makes you feel safe. That safety allows growth. Because when you don't have to hide your truth, you are free to evolve into a fuller version of yourself. In a toxic relationship, communication works differently. It becomes a tool not of connection, but of control. Instead of openness, there is manipulation. Instead of respect, there is blame. Words are used not to heal, but to wound, not to clarify, but to confuse. This is where we encounter gaslighting, passive aggressiveness, or constant criticism. These forms of toxic communication don't just hurt your feelings in the moment. They make you question your own reality. And when someone makes you doubt your own truth repeatedly, trust begins to collapse from the inside out. Psychologically, this comes down to the difference between communication that regulates emotions and communication that dysregulates them. In a healthy dynamic, communication soothes. Even during conflict, you eventually come back to a place of clarity and understanding. In toxic dynamics, communication escalates tension, leaving you more distressed than when you started. And here's the key, it's not the presence of conflict that defines toxicity, it's the way conflict is handled. Healthy couples argue, healthy friends disagree, healthy colleagues debate. But after the storm, there's repair, there's acknowledgement, there's respect. Toxic communication, on the other hand, leaves wounds open and unhealed. Philosophically, communication is the medium through which truth seeks expression. In a healthy relationship, there's room for two truths, yours and the other person's. Both can coexist, both can be voiced, and in that dialogue, something greater is formed, mutual understanding. In a toxic relationship, only one truth is allowed, the other person's. Your reality is dismissed, your voice is minimized, and slowly, your presence in the relationship becomes smaller and smaller. That is not communication. That is domination disguised as dialogue, and it's not always loud or obvious. Sometimes toxic communication is subtle. It's the dismissive comment that makes you second-guess yourself. It's the silence that punishes instead of heals. It's the way a simple concern is turned into an accusation against you. These small patterns add up. Over time, you stop speaking honestly because you already know your words will be twisted. That silence doesn't mean peace. It means suppression. And suppression is the slow death of connection. On the other hand, when you are in a healthy relationship, you feel encouraged to speak. Even when your words are imperfect, even when your emotions are messy, you know they won't be used against you. Instead, they will be heard, considered, and treated with dignity. That's the essence of respect. Not always agreeing, but always valuing. That value communicates, you matter. Your voice matters. Your truth matters. And when someone consistently makes you feel that way, trust deepens naturally. Practically, you can test this difference by asking yourself one simple question after communicating with this person. Do I feel clearer or more confused? In healthy communication, even hard conversations bring clarity. You may not like everything you heard, but at least you know where you stand. In toxic communication, even simple conversations leave you feeling lost, doubtful, or guilty for things you didn't do. That's the litmus test. Healthy communication brings light. Toxic communication keeps you in the dark. And we must remember, honest, respectful communication is not just a gift to the other person. It is a reflection of who we are. Every time you speak with honesty, you strengthen your own integrity. Every time you listen with respect, you enlarge your own character. Communication in relationships doesn't just shape the bond. It shapes the individuals within it. That is why paying attention to this area is not just about protecting the relationship, but also about protecting your own growth. So if you truly want to know whether a relationship is healthy or toxic, don't just look at the smiles in public or the pictures on social media. Listen to the conversations in private. Are words being used as tools of connection or as weapons of control? Are they building bridges or are they building walls? Because the truth is, relationships rise and fall on the words we exchange. And here's the reflection I want you to carry: every word is a choice. It can be a seed of trust or a spark of destruction. Speak words that heal, listen with respect, and pay attention to whether the communication in your life leaves you free or trapped. Because healthy relationships make your voice stronger, while toxic ones make it smaller. And your voice, your truth, is far too valuable to be silenced. One of the most profound signs of whether a relationship is healthy or toxic lies in a simple but life-changing question. Do you expand in this relationship or do you shrink? Human beings are meant to grow. We are meant to evolve, to step into fuller versions of ourselves, to move toward potential rather than retreat into fear. And the relationships we choose, romantic, professional, or personal, either serve as environments where that growth is nurtured or cages where that growth is suppressed. In a healthy relationship, you feel the freedom to be yourself, and even more than that, you feel inspired to become more than yourself. You are encouraged to pursue your passions, to take risks, to explore parts of your character and your purpose that you might not have had the courage to explore alone. A healthy relationship doesn't just tolerate your growth, it celebrates it. When you succeed, the other person isn't threatened. They're proud. When you fail, they don't condemn you. They support you. Their love or respect does not depend on you staying small. It expands as you expand. But in a toxic relationship, the opposite happens. Growth becomes threatening. Independence becomes suspicious. Dreams become inconvenient. Instead of being celebrated, your expansion is questioned, criticized, or even sabotaged. Toxic people often feel safer when you remain limited because your growth shines a light on their stagnation. And rather than confronting their own fears, they would rather keep you in a box, predictable, manageable, controllable. Slowly, you begin to shrink yourself to avoid conflict. You quiet your voice, dim your ambitions, and cut pieces off yourself just to keep the peace. That shrinking is one of the clearest signs of toxicity. Psychologically, this has deep roots in human behavior. Healthy relationships are built on secure attachment, where each person feels grounded enough in themselves to support the growth of the other. Insecure or toxic relationships, however, are often built on control, where one person's sense of worth depends on keeping the other within limits. And the tragedy is, many people stay in relationships like this for years, convincing themselves that sacrificing growth is the price of love or loyalty. But that is not love, that is imprisonment. Philosophically, you could think of it this way: love at its best is liberation, not limitation. If a relationship is truly rooted in love or respect, it will make you more of who you are, not less. True connection should be like sunlight to a seed. It should help you rise, stretch, and reach upward. Toxicity, on the other hand, is like keeping that seed in darkness. You may survive, but you will never fully bloom, and life is far too short to remain unbloomed. Sometimes, the shrinking is so subtle that you don't notice it happening until you look back. You realize you've stopped laughing as much. You realize you no longer dream as boldly as you once did. You notice that decisions are no longer made with your desires in mind, but with someone else's approval as the final measure. Toxicity erodes growth in increments, but health amplifies it. And here's the paradox: growth itself can be uncomfortable, even in the healthiest relationships. It can mean facing fears, risking failure, or stepping into the unknown. But in a healthy relationship, even that discomfort feels safe because you know you're supported. You're not punished for trying, you're encouraged for daring. The discomfort of growth is very different from the discomfort of suppression. One leads to expansion, the other to contraction. One makes you stronger, the other makes you smaller. So the question becomes, who do you become when you are consistently around this person? Do you feel like more of yourself or less? Do you feel encouraged to speak, to create, to try to rise? Or do you feel like you must hold back, censor, or reduce yourself just to keep the relationship alive? Because a relationship that requires you to shrink is not preserving you. It is destroying you slowly. Healthy relationships are not afraid of your freedom. They don't fear your voice, your growth, or your individuality. They honor it. And in honoring it, they create a kind of partnership that is not built on control, but on mutual expansion. That is the essence of growth and freedom together, two people choosing to walk alongside each other, not holding one another back, but pushing each other forward. And so here is the truth I want to leave you with: love that requires you to shrink is not love, it is fear in disguise. Love that helps you grow, that allows you to expand into your fullest self, that is love worth keeping. If you want to know whether your relationship is healthy or toxic, look not just at how it feels today, but at who you are becoming within it. Because the right relationship won't ask you to disappear, it will remind you to shine.